Those are your things. Get out of here now. I couldn't hide my shock at the sight of the numerous bags piled up by the entrance. They all belonged to my husband and I, packed with everything from clothes to daily necessities. What is this? Why are we being kicked out of the house we live in? My hands trembled with anger at such an unreasonable act. Seeing my reaction, my son and his wife smirked. Before Dad gets back from his business trip, this house will be ours. We're taking it as a wedding gift. That's impossible. You cannot do that. You didn't give us any wedding money, so this is fair enough, right? You're old anyway. Just go to a nursing home. When Emily said this, Kevin laughed along with her. That's a great idea. Off to the nursing home, old lady. My son and his wife taunted me to go to a nursing home. I found it all so absurd that I burst into laughter. They looked at me suspiciously, but I didn't care. Are you sure about this? You won't regret kicking me out? Huh? It'll be a relief. Fine. Do whatever you want. Smiling at their bravado, I took my bags and left the house. Finally, she's gone. This is perfect. We got the house. This is awesome. I could hear their overjoyed voices from behind the door. They had no idea what was coming their way. I walked away, dragging my suitcase behind me. My name is Mary. I've worked in caregiving for a long time, but I retired at the age of 70. Since I enjoy interacting with people, I volunteer as a local social worker even after retirement. My husband, also in his 70s, is the president of a small business. He remains active, traveling with his employees to help train his successor. Once his successor is ready, he plans to hand over the company, and until then, I'll support him in his work. We have one son, Kevin. He was a long-awaited baby, born after years of infertility. We raised him with great care, showering him with love from birth. Kevin grew up to be a thoughtful and well-mannered child, admired by our neighbors. Of course, we didn't spoil him. We taught him basic discipline, like understanding right from wrong and not doing things that would upset others. However, when Kevin became a high school student, I realized there were limits to parental influence. Kevin started hanging out with a local delinquent group, and his character gradually changed. The influence of friends can outweigh that of parents. Kevin, once well-behaved, became rebellious, selfish, and self-centered. Somehow, Kevin graduated from high school and went on to attend a local university. However, he soon started insisting on living alone. We rented him an apartment and helped with his tuition and living expenses. We hoped that university life would instill a sense of responsibility and help him become independent, but Kevin barely attended classes. Graduated by the skin of his teeth, and continued to drift aimlessly without a steady job. Kevin is now in his mid-40s. He doesn't work and has no significant other. I worry about whether he'll be okay, like this. I called Kevin around the new year to talk about his plans for the holidays. Looking back, this is where everything started to go wrong. Hello, who's this? The voice I hadn't heard in half a year was definitely not Kevin's. It was a cute but somewhat lethargic-sounding woman's voice. This is Kevin's phone, right? Who are you? Huh? Who are you? I heard Kevin's voice faintly in the background as the woman responded. Emily, who's on the phone? Kevin, some old lady is calling you. I don't know any old ladies. Who is it? Kevin took the phone with a laugh, but when he realized it was me, his tone turned annoyed. Oh, it's you, Mom. What do you want? What's with that attitude? You haven't visited in years. How about coming home for the holidays? Your dad wants to see you. My husband had indeed been feeling very lonely. Probably even more than I did, he worried about Kevin's future and always wondered if he was doing okay. Given how they used to argue all the time during Kevin's teenage years, my husband was particularly concerned. However, Kevin's response was cold. Nah, coming home is a hassle. Emily's here, so I'm not coming. What? At least call your dad then. Yeah, I got it. And the girl who answered, is her name Emily? Are you dating her? Are you living together? I couldn't help but ask quickly, curious about the woman. I mean, it's common courtesy not to answer someone else's phone, even if you're dating. Would someone really call a complete stranger some old lady? Honestly, it's quite rude. But instead of answering, Kevin let out an irritated sigh. Ugh. You're so annoying. What did you just say? You're always meddling. It's so annoying. With a shout, he hung up. Kevin had been verbally abusive during his rebellious phase, but I never expected such words from him as an adult. I stood there in shock, holding the phone. Hey, I'm home. Did you talk to Kevin? That night, I told my husband about the rude woman who answered the phone and the harsh words Kevin had said. He looked serious for a while before gently advising me. Well, even if he's a gig worker, he's working. He's got his own things going on. Let's leave him be for now. Maybe he was right. Kevin's change during high school due to bad influences had shocked me. Even after he became an adult, I was always worried he'd get involved with the wrong friends or partners. This may have made me too involved, which probably put a strain on our family. So, I consciously started to hold back on contacting him. A few months later, Kevin called me. He said he found a well-paying job in town and would be moving back soon. Despite everything, my husband and I were happy. Having our son far away always made us anxious, so knowing he was coming back was a relief. However, when Kevin returned, he brought a woman we didn't know. This is Emily. We're getting married. We were shocked by the sudden announcement. Not only is he marrying a woman with such a bad attitude, but Kevin is still just a part-timer. I heard that Emily isn't working properly either. How could they think of getting married with no stable income? Welcome, Emily. Wow, Kevin's parents' house is so old. The floor might cave in. How long have you been seeing Kevin? I don't remember. Are you always this picky? Emily's replies to our questions were mocking. Kevin didn't reprimand her, he laughed along with her. My husband and I exchanged glances, disappointed. This is terrible. My husband sounded almost sympathetic. Despite our objections, Kevin and Emily got married. When I said I wanted to greet her parents, Emily told me it wasn't necessary and didn't even arrange a meeting. To make things worse, they moved into a new condo right after returning to town. This is nothing like the shabby apartment we lived in before, Kevin said happily. But with their unstable incomes, there was no way they could afford the rent. As expected, they started relying on us for money. We decided to help with the condo rent, thinking it was only natural for newlyweds to need support. Even without asking directly for money, they began coming over more frequently to eat, presumably to save on food expenses. Emily's attitude remained the same. What is this food? It looks so gross. It's always been like this. No color, really. Their comments irritated me. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat. I only cook extra because you keep coming over. Emily seemed unfazed by my words. Influenced by her, Kevin started speaking more rudely to us, making us reluctant to interact with them. Then, suddenly, my husband had to go on a business trip. He needed to accompany an employee who would be his successor, meaning he'd be gone for a few weeks. During this time, I'd have to deal with Kevin and Emily on my own. I'm sorry to leave you alone like this. It's okay. You're almost done with your duties as president. Plus, we have something to look forward to. That's right. We just have to hold on until that's ready. Don't spend too much time with those two. We encouraged each other, and a few days later, I saw my husband off on his trip. Strangely, Kevin and Emily stopped coming over, giving me a brief period of peace. I was busy with my volunteer work as a social worker, so it was a relief not to deal with them. One day, I came home to find Kevin rummaging through the dresser. In it, we kept our bank books and other important items. What are you doing? I turned on the light and yelled. Kevin tossed the bank book aside. Bad timing. Why'd you come home? Do you know what you're doing? We're family, so give me some money. We didn't get a wedding gift, you know. Kevin complained about not receiving any wedding money, but it was no surprise. After all, my husband and I still hadn't accepted his marriage to Emily. Even with the condo rent and meals we were already providing. I couldn't believe he would try to steal from us. I immediately threw Kevin out. I didn't raise you to steal from your parents. If you ever do this again, you're out of our lives for good." With those strong words, Kevin left, clicking his tongue. I quickly called my husband to tell him what happened. Even though Kevin is our son, my husband was alarmed by his attempt to forcibly take our money. He did that. I warned him we'd cut ties if he tried it again, but there's no guarantee he won't. For now, let's move the bank books and other important items somewhere else. I'll be home in a few days, and we can have a proper discussion then. All right, I'll be waiting. With my husband returning in a few days, I hid our important items in a secure place and braced myself for any sudden visits from Kevin and Emily. But I never expected them to use such forceful methods. One day, as I returned from my volunteer work, I saw a truck parked in front of our house. Movers were carrying in boxes and furniture. Rushing inside, I found Kevin and Emily. "What are you doing?" "Oh, hey, Mom. Sorry, but we're taking over the house. We heard owning a house is an asset. It's better for us to live here than you guys, who don't have much time left," Emily said, laughing. My mind was already so confused, unable to comprehend their words. Besides, Dad's still working at 70, right? He's on a business trip now, isn't he? I don't want to end up like that. Working hard is stupid. We're just getting what's ours while you're still alive. Kevin's words were insulting to my hardworking husband. Kevin had seen firsthand the efforts my husband put into running a small business. While I understood his perspective, it felt like an unbearable insult. "Those are your things. Get out of here now." I couldn't hide my shock at the sight of the numerous bags piled up by the entrance. They all belonged to my husband and I, packed with everything from clothes to daily necessities. What is this? Why are we being kicked out of the house we live in? My hands trembled with anger at such an unreasonable act. Seeing my reaction, my son and his wife smirked. "Before Dad gets back from his business trip, this house will be ours. We're taking it as a wedding gift." "That's impossible. You cannot do that. You didn't give us any wedding money, so this is fair enough, right? You're old anyway. Just go to a nursing home." When Emily said this, Kevin laughed along with her. "That's a great idea. Off to the nursing home, old lady." My son and his wife taunted me to go to a nursing home. I found it all so absurd that I burst into laughter. They looked at me suspiciously, but I didn't care. "Are you sure about this? You won't regret kicking me out?" "Huh? It'll be a relief." "Fine. Do whatever you want." Smiling at their bluff, I picked up my bags and left the house. Finally, she's gone. This is perfect. We got the house. This is awesome. I could hear their overjoyed voices from behind the door. They had no idea what was coming their way. I walked away, dragging my suitcase behind me. 1 month has passed since then. After my husband returned from his trip, we received a phone call from Kevin. "Hello, Kevin? What's wrong?" "Mom, it's terrible." "The house." "What about the house?" Kevin's voice was clearly distressed, and I knew something urgent was happening. Actually, I already knew why Kevin was in trouble. "Did you know this house is being demolished?" "Oh, didn't I mention that?" I feigned ignorance, and then I heard Emily's voice next. "Hey, what's going on, Mary? Did you set us up? You moved in without asking, didn't you? Besides, a house that's not legally inherited doesn't become your asset just like that." Emily kept shouting, but I didn't care. The house Kevin and Emily had taken over was to be demolished. Once my husband returned from his trip, we planned to inform Kevin about the demolition and move into a newly built house. We had also moved our bank books and other important items to the new house the day Kevin tried to steal them, so they were safe. We intended to explain everything step by step, but Kevin and Emily took that opportunity away from us. "Mom, the demolition crew is already here, telling us to move out." "Where are you? Let us stay with you for a while. You still have the condo. You lived there before, so just go back." We already canceled the lease because we thought we'd get the house. Even though he is my own son, I was amazed by his lack of foresight. Apparently, they had canceled the condo lease, expecting to live in our house and use the money I paid for their rent freely. Then they found out the house was scheduled for demolition. But it was no longer our concern. You two should leave quickly. If someone other than the owner stays in a house set for demolition, you could be charged with trespassing. What? We're family. Help us. You're the ones who told us to go to a nursing home. We moved out as you wished, so now you deal with the consequences. With that, I hung up the phone. Demolition started, and our longtime home disappeared without a trace. I feared Kevin and Emily might refuse to leave and get into legal trouble, but that didn't happen. For a while, we lived peacefully, but the phone calls from Kevin and Emily didn't stop. We changed our phone number, but they tracked us down through local volunteer contacts. Their demands were always for money. Kevin and Emily had lost their home, couldn't get a proper place to live without steady jobs, and now lived in company housing while working at a factory. Despite having a place to stay, they still wanted to live luxuriously on someone else's dime. If you don't give us money, we'll come to your house. Their threats worried us. Only a few people knew where we lived. My husband had just retired and handed over the company to his successor, but had informed some employees of our new address. I doubt our employees would leak that information, but maybe you should talk to them, just in case. While we discussed this, Kevin and Emily visited my husband's company. The new president informed us about their visit. We were worried they might cause trouble at the workplace. But the new president assured us they didn't. Everyone at the company knew about Kevin and Emily's behavior from my husband's complaints, and they were shocked by their treatment of me. When Kevin and Emily showed up, the staff firmly turned them away. They demanded to know our whereabouts, but no one told them. The new president even scolded them, asking how much more ungrateful they could be. Kevin and Emily left in frustration and hadn't returned since. The president promised to inform us of any harassment and take legal action if necessary, which we readily agreed to. We received reassuring words from the company that they intended to protect my husband and me as a whole. My husband's hard work and good character had clearly earned this respect. And we made a firm decision. We're cutting ties with Kevin and Emily. They've caused trouble not just for us, but for everyone around us just to get money. Yes. I don't even miss them anymore. Though they are our children, they are separate individuals from us. No matter how much blood ties us, we can't forgive such horrible acts repeatedly. From what my husband's acquaintances told us, Kevin and Emily have been working non-stop at the factory since then. Apparently, their slacking off and sloppy assembly work have angered the factory manager, Jim. They're now paying for their previous laziness. Because of their hectic schedules, Kevin and Emily fight constantly. So much so that their neighbors in the company housing have complained about the noise. It's hard for them to save money because they spend it on gambling and smoking. The stress of not being able to save, combined with having no one to rely on, must be tough. But I can't feel sorry for them. Their constant begging for money was a result of never having worked properly. I hope their factory job might help them change for the better. Occasionally, Kevin still sends messages or calls. He says things like he's sorry for kicking us out and that he wants the family to get along. Although he seems to be changing, I still can't trust him. People can only live together when both parties are independent and considerate of each other. It's hard to start over while they are still so self-absorbed. After my husband retired, we rented land and started a vegetable garden. This was something he'd wanted to do since he was young, and now it was finally happening. While helping him with the gardening, I also continue my volunteer work as a social worker in our new location. Ideally, I would have liked to live peacefully with our son and his wife. Though that wish didn't come true, knowing they are living somewhere is enough. The time I spend with my husband is precious and warm. I want to protect this cherished happiness and our way of life with all my might.